Hello everyone, welcome to the next video on my tier list playlist. I believe it's the 7th one, so if you were here for the previous 6, I'm very thankful, and if that's the case, I think you may have liked my videos, so you may just give the like under this video instantly right now. How about that? Anyway, that's not my usual intro. I would rather usually tell you about what's going to be in this video. So we are going to cover the white's options for openings from the advanced player perspective. So if that is what is interesting to you, stay with me. There is going to be a lot of discussion. So let's start talking about the openings. I will remind you guys how am I structurizing my videos about the tier lists. So basically I want them to not be ordered alphabetically, but rather in terms of options against specific option from the opponent, let's say. So after e4, e5, e4, d5, and so on, so on. So first of all, we will cover our first move e4 with the answers from the opponent, starting with e5, and we'll cover the openings. So first on the list is the center game. So how does the center game goes? Basically, it's e4, e5, d4. I know that since it's the advanced section, many of you already know how is the opening called, how it goes, etc. But still, I want to show it to everyone in case anyone joined my channel right now for this video. So that's the center game, and at the beginner level, I said it's pure avoid. At the advanced level, it might be an avoid. However, sometimes, maybe from time to time, you may try to play this for example, during the shorter time control tournament or whatever. The idea is that sure, you are getting your queen out very early and that's not ideal. However, if you know the variation and you know that it should not go there, there, there or there and so on, but to e3, then maybe we can have the discussion on whether or not to play it. The idea is that with those moves you will be able perhaps to go for some aggressive setup shortly. It might be a nice surprise. However, as I've said, maybe for shorter time controls. Last time when I was talking about the openings for beginners, my section on the memes and tricks only were quite a short one for the most part of the video, so at that time we will start with this category. So center game goes into the tricks only due to the fact that sometimes it may work, it may be allowed for you to launch the attack on the king side, so yeah, I believe it belongs here. Going forward into the bishop's opening, I don't really know always what to think about such move, such opening, because both for beginners and advanced players it may transpose to many other options like Italian, like Vienna and so on, so on. But at the same time, I would say that there is no need to change the move order so much, to be honest, guys. Therefore, I would say and argue that bishop c4, well, it cannot be avoided because it's a simple developing move. Does it have any tricks? No. I mean, it has to go to the optional section, even though I believe there are plenty more challenging ones. But yeah, I believe the case is similar to the beginner tier. Anyway, continuing, I don't want to spend too much time on meaningless openings. Let's jump straight into Vienna. As we know, Vienna might be quite a nice option for the guys that want to get off the theory quite quickly because it's not so popular. However, maybe because I watch too much YouTube, I think that Vienna game is gaining the popularity. However, objectively, after moves like f4 and d5, which I believe will be known at the advanced level, there is no guarantee for us as white to get a better position. However, it might be playable because after following few more forcing moves, which is the main line, so f takes e5, knight takes e4, now I believe queen f3 might be okay option to put the pressure to the knight. Knight c3, d takes c3, we have a very imbalanced position, so for all the guys that want to play let's say, interesting chess, I mean, this is variation to go, perhaps. So Vienna game is for sure a good option. Will I put it into the legit option though? I'm not that sure. So let's agree that as of now it will be the top optional tire. Maybe later on we will change that. So now we jump into the Ponziani opening. Ponziani opening is the opening that starts after knight f3 finally, and then the move is c3. Personally, I'm not that big of a fan of this opening at either level, so the whole idea is that we want to have some tricks with some queen a4, but the general assumption of mine is that if the time control is longer one, it's not that hard playing black pieces to just be able to not go into any of the tricks that we have prepared for the opponent. Therefore, I don't think this opening deserves even to be in the tricks only section. So as of now, let's just put it straight into the avoid. Maybe I will change my mind, but I'm not that sure about it. Next up the list is the 4 knights game. So yeah, how to play it. Basically, the opening goes like this: here, here, here. Now knight c3, and assuming that black will reply with this move, we are having ourselves the 4 knights game. The name is quite easily explainable. So the idea is that in here we can play d4, switching a little bit to the Scotch game, but also we might try some other moves like bishop b5. I have seen that the move like g3 is gaining some popularity even at the top level. I believe that Abdusattorov played it in the classical game. I'm not sure if this specific move order, but still it's possible. So I would say that 4 knights game allows us as white to have some flexibility going into this or that direction. But is it that great? I'm not that sure. And for that reason, I will say that it's not as good as the Vienna game, since the Vienna game allows us to have even more flexibility with f4 move. Is it better than bishop's opening? Maybe it offers a little bit more flexibility than this, so let's just put it in between. But really, guys, it's their differences are not that great anyway, so yeah, you just have to find your own move order, let's say. All right, going further, we now have the Scotch game. Scotch game is the love of mine as of now for quite a few years. First of all, it's all started because I wanted to prepare some active opening for my students, and then I went on exploring the lines. I found some nice looking ideas, I would say. So overall, I liked the Scotch game myself so much that I started playing it even against better opponents. It's very open, solid enough, and offers you some upside with aggressive setups also. So I would say it has it all basically. So even though objectively it does not guarantee us the post-opening advantage if black is playing basically the main line, still I just like the positions. You may not like them, but for me those are fine. So obviously I'm talking about two main lines, which would be knight f6 or bishop c5. So even though there is a little bit of fury to be known, I would say that the Scotch game in general is quite a nice option in order to avoid all the Italians and Ruy Lopez stuff. And one thing I would like to mention though is that I prefer knight c3 move rather than knight takes c6. So going into the Scotch slash 4 knights game or 4 knights game slash Scotch game. And after bishop c5, I believe that knight b3 idea is quite a nice one due to two reasons. First of all, it might still be a surprise for the opponents because this variation is gaining popularity, but I'm not sure if it's that popular already. And the second thing is that you might try to get aggressive setup that I was mentioning earlier, meaning that Scotch game has it all. So overall, I myself subjectively will put the Scotch game into the legendary tier once again, similarly as during the section for the beginners. However, I know that not too many players masters of any kind or YouTubers would agree with me. That's my choice, so you have to live with it. Anyway, going further, we are getting into the Italian game and Ruy Lopez territory. I believe that if you are an advanced player, there is not that much to really say about them. Italian game, we all know. Just one note in terms of the organization of the tier list. As I've mentioned in any other previous video, the thing is that I believe that gioco piano or fright lever are chosen by the opponent. Therefore, I include those options separately in the openings from black's perspective. For white, I just listed Italian game as a whole. So obviously Italian game is a classic opening that may be leading us towards the crazy variations in the fright lever, in the more solid variations in the gioco piano with, let's say, c3 d3 or only d3 and so on. So plenty of opportunities. We, as of now, can observe the rising popularity, especially at the top level, that Italian game is played so often in the candidates, in the every other important tournament. So it offers a lot of complex games, to be honest. If you don't want complexity, go for something easier like Scotch game. If you are happy with all the complications, implications, and other cations, whatever, I'm not sure if there's any other word like this, Italian game might be for you. And obviously, because of the history, because of the many ideas that are there, it will go into the legendary tier. And in terms of Ruy Lopez, also, I don't think if there is that much to talk about. At the top level, it used to be the top choice also, I would say. Nowadays, I'm not sure what's chosen more frequently, bishop c4 or bishop b5, but obviously another classic. I don't want to get into too much fury because I believe that advanced players, you guys already know it, but the whole idea is that once again, we will get complex positions with many different setups possible for both sides, and complexity of the game rises and rises only in such openings. Therefore, allow both sides to have some fun, to try their ideas, meaning that it's once again legendary. And for that reasons, actually, because we would have 3 legendary openings then, I have to downgrade Scotch to legit section, unfortunately, so that I can put both Italian and Ruy Lopez into the legendary. So yeah, it hurts my heart, but that's what it is. Scotch game has to be downgraded. Alright. Also, I will try to put Ruy Lopez over the Italian a little bit. I prefer Spain to Italy anyway, so yeah, let's do it that way. Alright, going further, we have the Scandinavian family. As I've discussed in the previous video for the beginners, it was quite hard for me to differentiate any ideas against Scandinavian, but for the advanced level I would say that the difference are there and can be explained. So basically the whole idea of mine is that you can either go with the main line against any choice of the opponent. So after queen a5 you can play d4, after let's say queen d6 you can play d4, queen d8, and so on. All the time very similar structures. Obviously you can get into a little bit of a detail of what are the differences from the opponent's perspective, but all in all, playing simple healthy moves don't require you to like get a lot of knowledge about Scandinavian overall. So that's the case, and because of that, as I've said, it was hard to differentiate anything, but there is this triangle system that I wanted to talk about. The whole idea behind it is that we will not go with the pawn to d4 but d3, which will allow us to be a little bit more solid. Let's say this pawn on d3 guarantees us that there will be no bishop f5, and it's quite hard to explain it strategically, but the whole idea behind this is that since we are passive and the opponent might be passive, as usually he is in the Scandinavian, there will be no clash in the center, no fight in the center. And as we know, if there is no fighting in the center of the board, we might feel a little bit frisky and risky and go for the like queenside or kingside attack. So the whole idea of the system is that we are trying to build some solid triangle system position, and then just castle long and start pushing the pawns on the king side. It might be hyper aggressive, maybe over aggressive. However, if you will know the whole nuances in this setup, you might actually be able to outplay the opponent in an aggressive fashion, which I personally like. So that's why I differentiated this variation from the main line, and I believe that at the advanced level it might be quite a nice weapon, because obviously, let's say at this point, if the bishop g4 move is played, you should be aware of the fact that as of now we can just play f3 because our setup will not change, and this move will only allow us to launch the pawn attack earlier with tempos and so on, so on. So yeah, quite a rich, strange looking position, but I like strange ideas. So main line of the Scandinavian, this time I believe we'll go into the optional section, maybe at the top, and at the bottom of the ledge it will go the triangle. I would like to try to be somewhat controversial today, so maybe that's it. Maybe Scandinavian will be the thing that will trigger you guys. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, Scandinavian, I think that it's covered, so let's jump into the Sicilian, because Sicilian section, as usual, should be the longest one. So, what can I tell you guys about the Sicilian? I've tried playing open Sicilian for many years, I still do. I tried to play closed Sicilian for many years, I used to do it, I don't do it anymore. Alapin and the late Alapin variations are still with me, deep in my heart, I love them and so on. In terms of Grand Prix attack and Rossolimo, that should be also covered. I believe you may see all of those options right there. I have not played them, and maybe it's like subjective thing, but I have not played them, but I would love to learn them because I believe they offer great value. So all the variations that we will be covering are great, because I believe from both Sicilian in the Sicilian opening for both sides there are plenty of possibilities. I like many of them because the position is so rich in ideas. So I don't think there will be any avoid. I will just try to somehow create some hierarchy of which is which and how to go around Sicilian. So enough of the introduction, let's start with the concrete variations. Now first on the list we have the closed Sicilian. It starts usually with knight c3 move followed by g3. Setup usually will be like this, so we want to be solid, we want to have the space, we want to not be bothered against bothered by any setup of the opponent, because we are so solid, nothing can break us anywhere at any point. So that's the case. So I believe it is very solid. However, it does not perhaps allow us to get high upside because the position is solid, but so what? Black can also be solid because they have time to get solid position. So there are plenty of variations of the closed Sicilian. You may also try to play it with d3, c3, with the knight being on b1. Maybe that's a little bit different, maybe a little bit better. It all depends on what is the move order that suits you. So overall, closed Sicilian is quite a nice weapon against Sicilian, since it allows you to have your setup, not the opponent's, and avoid any aggressive implications that you don't like. So maybe that's that. In terms of vibe, I would say that the Alapin Sicilian is a little bit similar, because it tells the opponent that okay, I'm not entering any dragon, any Najdorf, any Sveshnikov, nothing. I, as white, want to play my systems, not yours. So in that instance, as I've said, it's similar. Also, we want to care about the activity, the space for our pieces, and we want to build that center. Obviously, at the advanced level, I would say that opponents should know what to play, so they should know to attack the e4 pawn either by knight f6 or d5. So then you have to know the isolated pawn structures a lot, because you will most certainly get them in the Alapin system. So that's that, and if you enjoy them, I don't see any problem with playing Alapin. If you don't like them, maybe there are better options. So another, let's say, small family of the variations against Sicilian will be the Grand Prix attack and Rossolimo. Grand Prix attack might start same as the closed Sicilian, however, in this variation we'll often play a move like f4 with bishop c4 or b5, or in the other move order, so bishop b5 first, then maybe f4, or maybe only bishop c4, no bishop c5, and so on. The whole idea behind it, and the whole difference between this one and closed Sicilian, is that the light squared bishop will go somewhere else rather than g2. So that's the biggest difference, and it allows white to, let's say, attack on the f-file. We can imagine that bishop goes here, the castle is there, so rook is on f1, bishop on c4, f-pawn is quick, so we may observe also such lines in which queen e1, queen h4, knight g5 is played, so we will pressurize most important squares around the black castled king. So that's the case. Quick, sharp attack to the opponent's position, being quite solid in the center. So I like this setup at all. I like this setup very much, and I would really like to know it better. At this point, I'm not sure, I was lazy or something, but I didn't learn it. Maybe that's my my mistake. Anyway, it's very nice option also for the classical games. So if you want to learn it, please do. You are an advanced player, you know a lot about chess, so yeah, there you go. In terms of the Rossolimo, we abandoned the idea of pushing f4, so we play bishop b5 now. I kind of think about Rossolimo even if knight c6 is not there. So for example, if d6 is played, I consider this move also as the Rossolimo family, let's say, even though it's named differently. The whole idea behind it is that we want to have, I would say, more of a strategic game. If you are good at those, this move offers you plenty of depth strategically, and yeah, if you want to put some effort, I believe Rossolimo would be amazing, because I myself struggle against it for years and years and years, and I still haven't found a complete way how to deal with it. So due to that fact, as I've said, I would recommend it, go on, but one note, it will require quite a lot of understanding of chess. So if you are the advanced player who just nearly got there from the intermediate level, let's say, maybe try to look somewhere else. But if you're an advanced player, there you go, that might be an option. Okay, and the last one obviously will be the open Sicilian, right, which goes with the move d4. Doesn't matter if black goes for this or this or this or anything else, we push d4, and I believe as the advanced player it will give you objectively the best chances and the highest upside, but also quite a lot of work is required. I warned you about the Rossolimo. Open Sicilian, any kind of, it's like, okay, whole different story. You need to be prepared for all of it. But as the advanced player, as the e4 player, since the c5 reply is the most common one, I believe it's natural way of progress that you should be familiar with those. So if you are not scared, just go for it. You will learn the most, you will have the most interesting games, I would say. So yeah, I quite like it. Going back to the list then, because we've covered quite a lot of the variations, I need to think about, alright, how to put it. Alapian, as I've said, is deep in my heart, I love it. But at the top level, it's not that playable because it does not offer that much upside. So if I had to downgrade the Scotch to legit, perhaps I will have to downgrade the Alapin as well. I want to be objective, guys. So I will put it at the top of optional then. That's the way, I guess. If I would like to consider the closed Sicilian, it offers you, as I've said, you are being solid, flexibility is there. I don't want to put too many variations too high, so I will start with Rossolimo attack then. I would say that it's very legit, maybe up there. Open Sicilian, let's just say it's legendary, guys. I mean, there are so plenty of opportunities to both sides that it's got to be legendary. Grand Prix attack might be also legit, and I myself prefer it to even Rossolimo maybe lately. If you asked me 1 year ago, I would rate Rossolimo much higher. Now, I'm not so sure. So, Grand Prix goes right before the Rossolimo, and since we have already two variations of the Sicilian replies in the legit section, I think I have to go with the closed just to the optional, maybe around the Vienna, maybe like this, guys. I'm not that happy with it because, as I've said, I love Sicilian from both perspectives, but yeah, it's very hard to give everything like legit or legendary tire. I have to be a little bit more picky, let's say. So that's that, and with that we can continue with the French. And with the French, the evaluation will be perhaps different, but not that much to the beginner tire, meaning that still I believe that exchanged variation is not that great of an option. If you want to have a quick draw, fine. I believe there are few strange ideas, like Queen f3. If you want to be very tricky and tell the world that you are such a player, but to be honest, there are no tricks there, you are just over exaggerating the things you play or whatever, I mean, okay, you can try this, but I believe there are plenty more better variations. So let's just agree that exchange variation is an avoid once again. Tirage variation, starting from the worst option to the best one, I believe is okay. However, even though I play it, I believe that with black's nice, good looking replies, healthy replies, there is nothing there for white really. So I am thinking about switching maybe to something else, because I myself as an advanced player struggle a little bit. For beginners, maybe it's fine. For us, maybe it's not. So top two variations would be perhaps the advanced variation and the main line. Obviously the main line is the more ambitious one, the one that you will have plenty of different structures and possibilities. So maybe that's the way to go. E5, however, might be also played. I personally don't like it as much at the top level, because I feel like even though I have this space advantage, I cannot deal well enough with this whole pressure to the d4 pawn, not allowing me really to get better positions. So with that in mind, I would say that the main line would be the best one. Obviously it requires a lot of work to put into it, but objectively that's the way to go, I believe. So with that in mind, let's just go back to the list. Exchange variation will be the avoid, but I believe at the top of the list, as I've said, there are some tricks to it maybe. Tirage variation, is it the avoid? I don't think so. Maybe let's just say that it will be in the optional section right there. Advanced variation, oh man, maybe I will put also in the optional section, but I really prefer a lap into it. Maybe there, and mainline would go into the legit section, since there are plenty of options against French, and not any of them is like legendary top, allowing you to get the same positions each time, but it requires both memorization and knowing the ideas. I would say that French overall for black is a good option at the advanced level, and therefore we don't have any legendary options against it, but legit ones for sure. So let's just say that the legit main line French will go right here. I don't think I'm so happy with it, but I just feel that way. Today, maybe tomorrow it would have changed, but as of now it is what it is. You may try to suggest me the French evaluation in the comments section. Alright, and now after French we get similar opening to evaluate, which is for sure the Caro-Kann. I believe that at the top level there are not too many differences in terms of the evaluation between Caro-Kann and French, due to the fact that it's playable for both colors, and for beginners French is not playable, I believe Caro-Kann also is. So when we consider the options against the Caro-Kann, I've listed 5 of them. Exchange variation with possibility of later on playing the Panov attack, advanced variations, so it's 3 already, mainline and f3. So we will cover them in such move order, let's say, variation order. So ed5, ed5, we are entering the exchanged variation setup. So if you are familiar and you like the Carlsbad structure, or in this instant the reversed version of it, sure, you can go for it. And this variation does not offer you that high of an upside, but it's solid enough. And as I've said, if you like the structure, there is nothing wrong with going for this variation. Pan of attack, however, even though it was my go-to for many years, I believe that it requires you a lot of knowledge about the isolated pawn structure. And even though I consider myself as a player that likes such positions, sometimes I struggled with continuing to play against those healthy looking moves from the opponent, pressurizing the center, keeping the center under control and so on. So it's a decent option, but over time I believe that there are plenty of other ones, quite interesting ones, and especially against the Caro-Kann. I listed 5 options, but there are still plenty more, so yeah, that's that. Anyway, I will think later what should I rate higher, either its pan of attack or the exchange variation, and as of now we may jump into the others. So let's talk about the advanced one. So I believe that this move can lead to many different positions, structures, setups, variations, and so on. Therefore, at the master level, perhaps it's the best option. But if you're an advanced player, we need to define what does the advanced mean. So, like for me, the amount of ideas that are there is just too much for me, to be honest. I would not know how to play against bishop f5. Back in my days, let's say, I believe that the popular variation was like knight c3, I guess, and after e6, g4, knight e2. But I haven't seen it for years now, I guess. And because of the fact that right now, after this move, there are plenty more popular ways of playing. h4 is one of them, leading to completely different positions than many other variations. I believe that even knight d2 with knight b3 is possibility, knight f3 normal looking move. So there are so many possibilities that I myself, even though as I consider myself as the advanced player, I don't know how to choose from all of those. So if you have a coach, if you have the course, some on some site or whatever, if you have the desire, you can try to learn about the advanced variation, because it will really help you to have a great weapon against Caro-Kann. For me, myself, it might be even too much to digest. So depending on your specific level, I would say you either go for it or you don't, because it's a lot of work. Anyway, going back to all the other variations, we have 2 more of them. So knight c3 is leading to nowhere as of now, because this is where the game starts really. Once again, the other variation that is growing in popularity, this time from black's perspective, is this one. For many years it was considered dubious. As of now it's working. Bishop f5 was more popular back in the day, let's say. Also quite playable for sure. So plenty of variations to continue. And to be honest, since it's the main line, and since the knight f6 reply, it's like having a new life. Actually, as of now, for the time being, in the June of 2024, I'm not that sure if that's the way to go really in the Caro-Kann, because you are not playing your game, you are playing opponent's game. You need to react to what he does, which setup he chooses. So for that reason, even though usually mainline is objectively the best one, perhaps in the Caro-Kann objectively it's also the case, practically I would consider maybe other options. So f3 move is the move that is liked by the hyper aggressive players, or the players that like to find some novelties and play them and surprise the opponents. It offers quite a nice upside if opponents really take on e4, play e5, because even though black may try to know all those variations, it's quite harder for them to play this position. And also if they don't go for this but rather this variation, we are once again quite solid. So when we consider all the other options than the main ones like f3, like two knights variation, like some other variations that I can't even name, but I know they are a thing. For example, like this one. Yeah, I would say that overall F3 idea is quite okay one. So I talked way too much about the Caro-Kann, I think, but I wanted to make it clear that at the advanced level, really, chess is a game of choice, so you may choose like whatever you want and perhaps it will be alright. So as of now, let's just agree that exchange Caro-Kann might be an optional one. F3, See guys, when you are playing white, there are so many good options that I cannot put anything really into the avoid. That's the problem. Aye. Maybe I have to, because there are 5 Caro-Kanns and I have 5 categories. So, a legendary tire. Okay, I have to do it, even though I told you guys that there is plenty of work to play this and so on. Let's just agree that advanced Caro-Kann will be the very good option. Okay, it requires a lot of knowledge, but if you are playing Rui Lopez, Open, Sicilian and advanced Caro-Kann, we may actually say that you are the pro player, let's say, and you know your stuff. So yeah, there you go. Then rating all the others. Mainline, as I've said, was not so great anymore, so it might be controversial, but I like perhaps all the other options right now more. Guys, this is it. You may be mad at me, but I am doing this. And since I wanted to put Caro-Kann variations into different categories, let's just say that I will put exchange Caro-Kann in the legit one, since it's very solid and you may quite like it at many levels. Caro-Kann with F3 will then go into the tricks only section. However, I would love for it to go higher, but into the optional section I will choose pan of attack. And since it's quite an open position, I will put it here. Perhaps a little bit too high, but both advanced French, closed Sicilian and the Scandinavian mainline, that are not so open, and since I like open position, maybe pan of attack should be there, together with the Alapin actually. They both lead to the isolated pawn structure, so yeah, there you go guys. Let me know in the comments what do you think, because Caro-Kann section is always the toughest for me, since there are plenty of options. I like the opening for both sides, so yeah, quite a tough one really. Anyway, to not make this part of the tier list too long, let's just go into the last setup against e4 from Black's perspective. So from Black's perspective, I believe the last significant setup that you have to mention is the Pirc / modern / Robach, or however you call it, which is usually the d6 combined with g6, with either knight on f6, bishop on g7, pawn on c6, etc. So I chose 3 different setups because I don't even know if the variations have names, and even if they do, they would be nothing. I like to think about chess in terms of setups. So we have the f4 setup, aggressive one, f3, solid / aggressive, and knight f3, not carrying one. So knight f3 for sure is the option at the higher level, because I believe if you are an advanced player, you know how to play strategically, you know what to avoid in this setup, meaning that you cannot allow the variation that I explained in the beginner section. So overall it's playable, for sure it's optional if you don't want into any aggressive position. However, note that opponent chose the opening for you. He chose the Pirc opening, and if you are willing to play strategically, calmly, etc., I would tell you this: you are trying to play his game, not yours. And I am a big fan of trying to go into the variations which we chose, not the opponent, making a statement that okay, you chose Pirc opening, but we are choosing this, we are choosing that. And for that reason, I would rate knight f3 as the worst of all, I would say. f4 might be the best to crush the opponents at the lower level. At the advanced level, we perhaps all know that even though it looks very promising, if it would be crushing actually, Black would not play Pirc opening. So f4 offers high upside, but also it requires quite a lot of memorization. So even though it's very much different to the f3 setup, I perhaps will put them somewhere near each other, because f3 is as I've said, more solid in terms of the center, but also might be aggressive in terms of the attack. f4 is not as solid, but offers higher upside. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but that's my reasoning behind it. So as of now, knight f3 setup will go into the avoid, maybe somewhere here. And in terms of the f4 and f3 setup, maybe I will put them into the legit section at the end of it. Seems fair, since optional section is already with plenty of options against with e4 during the first move. So let's put f4 there, f3 there, and since I play f3 more, maybe like this. It's up to you guys, 50-50, I called it that way, and that's the case. And with that, guys, thank you very much for this part of the video. I know my stuff, I know that I should end it here, so for the next part, come back tomorrow to my channel. So if you are still here, give a like and subscribe to not miss out on any other tier list video or any other video, because we will be continuing the video with the d4 and all the other moves for our first choice, right? Today we've covered e4, we have d4, c4, f4, you name it. So thank you for today, and we'll see each other in the next video tomorrow. Bye bye.